So we're going to talk, kind of cover three things. First, do a brief overview of the maker movement itself. We'll talk some about what TechShop is, what a makerspace is, and then go through a series of slides that demonstrate the impact that the maker movement is having. So as a former Green Beret, I like to use the terms of revolution, and I believe we are in the middle of a revolution, and it's completely appropriate, so that is why the book is called a manifesto. It is a manifesto, it is a revolution. We're trying to get people to join it and to help remake society around kind of the maker gestalt. As a Green Beret, I also like to blow things up, and so we're blowing up some old things and bringing in some new. And there are going to be some moments throughout this deck that you're going to want to participate in some way. So I'm going to allow you to do that. I want you to yell boom every once in a while. We'll do it collectively, and so just real quick, on three. 1, 2, 3, boom! Oh, that was beautiful. We're not even going to do a practice session. So we've had a great couple of years in the maker movement. It's about 10 years old. And we've started to see some really interesting results. So the first one is like MakerBot. What I love about MakerBot is the founder of MakerBot was Bree Pettis. 6 years ago, Bree was a junior high art teacher. He just had a $600 million exit. Not bad for a junior high art teacher. He did it over about 5 years. 1, 2, 3. Boom. You can do better than that. 1, 2, 3. Boom. All right, so Autodesk has joined the movement. They've actually traded an entire division. They've probably spent something on the order of $600 to $700 million. They've got an entirely new division. They've launched all kinds of things on the web. They've bought Instructables. They've bought GrabCAD. They've got a whole bunch of different things they're doing. Etsy is now worth more than $1 billion. Kickstarter has done more than $1 billion worth of transactions. Shapeway's got was released from Philips to do their own thing. GE is now involved. Intel finally launched Galileo and the other Arduino type of boards. The White House came and visited TechShop Pittsburgh. Yay! 1, 2, 3, boom! We've had books. Did I mention my book? Yeah, there's a couple of books have come out, and we've got multiple accelerators, including Alpha Lab Gear here in Pittsburgh that launched immediately after we opened the TechShop space up in East Liberty. So for those of you who may not know what a TechShop or a makerspace is, it's membership-based, open access, do-it-yourself fabrication shop. Open access means anybody 16 years old or older can come in and use the tools. It's not an accelerator. You don't have to present a business plan. The only transaction that's required is you got to pay your monthly fee and you get access to the entire facility. DIY means you do it. We don't do it for you. It's not a prototyping shop. You learn how to use the tools, and then you make the stuff that you want to make. And we call these maker spaces. TechShop has 8. We have 8 of them in the US so far. We're opening Munich next month. We've got 22 more in the pipeline. We envision it eventually becoming the Kinkos of the 21st century. There will be 1,000 of them around the globe where you can get things made locally by local artisans, and you can actually participate. Ours are 20,000 square feet. It's every tool you need, and I'm going to show you the tools. $125 a month, hundreds of classes. We do teach about 200 classes a month in each location. And we do all kinds of corporate events. So if you're doing any kind of team building, you got to come out to East Liberty or come to one of our other locations. Lasers and beer, welding and wine, water jet and whiskey. 1, 2, 3, boom! It is a lot of fun. These events are fabulous. We're sitting at kind of in the intersection of the maker movement. You've got the collaborative economy, which is the Uber and those folks. You've got the maker movement, which is the MakerBot and Make Magazine. We are an educational institution. 35% of our revenue is teaching people how to use the tools so that they can produce things. And we're something of a retailer, and there's a real estate play. Let's get to the tools. So these are your traditional industrial grade tools, mills and lathes, digital readouts, computer numerically controlled mills. This is important. What's happened in the last decade is that by adding computers to these various different tools, we can now teach you how to become a master woodworking craftsman, or the equivalent, a master CNC operator in 2 or 3 days. You learn how to use the software, you manipulate it, and then the machine does the execution. You don't need to understand geometry, you don't need to understand calculus, the machine and the computer takes it for you. Now, you're not going to be world class at it, but you're going to be good enough to get your project to the next phase. I used to run innovation at Avery Dennison, and I would have stage-gated new product development cycles. We are having companies launch their entire company from the ground and not even knowing how to use the tools to $1 million in sales inside of what used to be one of my stages. Used to be have a 9-month to a 18-month development cycle. Entire companies are launching inside, and the reason is because of the combination of the software and the hardware. So we have all the other traditionals. Of course, we got 3D printers, as I mentioned already. We've got laser cutters. We call this our gateway drug. I'm from San Francisco, I can say that. If you want to be a pusher, there's certain things that you need, like the first hit's free, as they say, and then the key is powerful, easy to use, and extremely addictive. That is the laser cutter. We have had people accidentally launch businesses after taking one class. They take a $60 class, they show up the next week with some tchotchkes that they're showing their friends want them, the friends of friends wants them, they launch an Etsy store. One young lady has now become the Martha Stewart of the Silicon Valley. It's called Britton Company. She came in and started that way. We had a homeless man, we didn't know he was homeless, living in a shelter, spent his last $50, learned how to use the laser cutter, and completely rebooted his life. 1, 2, 3, boom. He's now created a thing called a learning shelter, and he's helping other homeless people come through our space to reboot their lives. The laser cutter is a phenomenal gateway tool. Sheet metal. Of course, welding, we love welding. Date night is fabulous. You come in and you learn how to weld in the evening, you're dealing with fire and sparks, it's phenomenal. The water jet, we call this our sexy beast. It'll cut through 5 inches thick of anything on the planet. We teach you how to use it in 2 hours. It cuts through concrete, granite, titanium, pigs, cows. It'll cut through everything. Woodworking, again, computer numerically controlled, so you can take 2 classes and produce incredibly elegant woodworking pieces. Plastic lab, I gotta pick the pace up, come on here. Injection molding machines. Software, as I mentioned already, is very important. Autodesk has been a leader in that space and is one of our partners. Textiles, we have multiple people who have created projects that have been on the New York Fashion Week, as well as actually launch businesses. Some immigrants can't even afford the $1,500 sewing machine when they first come, so they come in, they join, they take a $125 class, they now have access to a complete textiles lab, they produce 3 or 4 nice suits, and they go out and buy the machine and they're on their own. That's happened at least 4 or 5 times that I'm aware of. Large project bay for doing big projects. I've mentioned team building and events already, lasers and beer, it's a lot of fun. The most important thing, though, that we're doing, people get distracted by all the sexy tools, and that's understandable because they're a lot of fun and you don't usually get access, you don't usually get to walk up and touch these things in a normal environment, and you do in ours. But what we're actually doing is we're aggregating the most creative people in the community to hang out and work together on the projects they care about on a daily basis. And our objective is to get over 500 members, because once you have 500 members in one of these spaces, you are now 2 degrees of freedom from success. If you don't have the answer, you don't understand what it is you need to do next, you can go to one of our dream consultants. The odds are they know exactly what you need to do, and if they don't, because we've aggregated this community of the most creative people in the city, the answer is on site, and the dream consultant knows who's there and will introduce you to them right now. That is how you keep a project moving, is you create an environment where you've got the learning, you've got the tools, and you've got the community to be able to keep the project moving forward. It's phenomenal. So I'm going to talk some about the projects. We're part of the maker movement, which is fun. You should come to a maker fair, a New York Maker Fair or the San Mateo Fair. But we get kind of thrown into this milieu where people think, well, you know, the Maker Faire, that's just for kids and they're little crafty projects and they're blinky lights and it's kind of an introduction to STEM. It's like, yes, we do that. But in a full-blown maker space like TechShop, we have all of the tools of the Industrial Revolution. We have the same tools that the researcher at Ford Motor Company is using, that General Electric is using, that others are using. These are not toys. These are real tools that you can do some amazing things with, like build the world's fastest electric motorcycle. It did 218 miles an hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats. It was completely constructed at TechShop because you can't get an electric motorcycle electric harness. You have to build it yourself. You can't get an electric motorcycle motor. You've got to design and build it yourself. You can't get an electric motorcycle transmission. You're going to have to build it yourself. You don't have the fairing. You don't have the frame. They built all of that in our location in Menlo Park. They won Pikes Peak this year. Not only did they beat all the electric motorcycles, they destroyed the entire field. When was the last time you saw a professional race where the second place finisher came in 20 seconds later? This boy had a shower and a beer by the time the Ducati Superbike came across the finish line. 1, 2, 3. Boom. They're going into production this spring, and it will do 218 miles an hour. It is the fastest production motorcycle the world has ever seen. You'll be able to buy it out of their Menlo Park location. Andy's working on a jetpack, so if you really need to get there fast, I would recommend one of these. We've had satellites, a bunch of nanosat or CubeSat satellites that have come out of our Menlo facility. This is one of the many success stories. So Max was a designer at a store close by, and he wanted to own his own company, and he needed $60,000 to get it started. Historically, where are you going to go to get 60 grand if you're a 24-year-old kid with no collateral? Nowhere. Now, because of Kickstarter, you can raise the money. I was concerned for him because he was trying to raise 60 grand. It would have put it in the top 10% of the most successful projects that year. I should not have been concerned. It's absolutely gorgeous. He raised $480,000 and launched his company. Had never used a laser cutter before, had never done Arduino before, had built the prototype, raised the money, and launched his company. He was on Shark Tank this last season, and they had a feeding frenzy. All 5 of the sharks wanted to be in that business. So Max is up and running. Anton, same story. Basically, this is a folding kayak. He was looking for like $70,000 and raised about $500,000. He was also on Shark Tank and raised money that way. Patrick came in and said, what classes do I need to take to learn how to build an iPad case out of bamboo and bookbinding? He took 3 classes. Within 90 days of walking through our door, he had sold $1 million in product. He did $3 million in the first year, $10 million in the second, $35 million in the third. He's got a manufacturing facility in downtown San Francisco, saved a bookbinding company, and employs 25 employees. None of those have changed the world. Oh, and by the way, the President of the United States carries one. None of those changed the world, though. These next 6 have. So you may have heard of Square, the merchant banking system. James McKelvey was the brains behind that. Jack is the one that gets a lot of the press. Those are the original 3 prototypes. It's a $6 billion company now. Does about $60 billion in transactions. The world's most efficient data cooling center, licensed to Emerson Electronics. The world's first nitrogen detection device to help farmers figure out whether or not they've got enough fertilizer or not. The world's only stove that will power your electronics, which is pretty important in some parts of the world where you have rolling brownouts. This is the world's cheapest drip irrigation system, and then my favorite is this one here. This is an incubation blanket, came out of the design school at Stanford. They then landed at TechShop and upgraded, actually had like a 4-fold improvement in the core technology. This has saved 87,000 babies so far. 1, 2, 3, boom. So what happens when you give the creative class access to the tools of the Industrial Revolution? They change the world, and it only costs $125 a month. So here's the impact that TechShop has had in the Bay Area alone. $12 billion in shareholder value has been created, $2 billion in annual sales, $200 million in annual salaries, 2,000 jobs. The state of California at the 10% bracket is pulling $20 million a year out of the innovation that has come out of the TechShop network in California. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Nice job. Grab that.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Clearly, the makerspace is changing the world. My question is, what are some of the ways that we can connect not only the makerspace, TechShop, and this creative movement to underserved communities and underserved neighborhoods? We talk about inclusion.
Absolutely.
My challenge is that we get more, African Americans and Hispanics up on that screen with new businesses.
Absolutely.
So how do we do that? How do we connect to the underserved
Well, so
population?
I'll be straight. We need to get every kid at Garwood, that area just outside of East Liberty, every one of them should have a summer pass to TechShop and a few $100s to take classes. There's just no excuse for not letting that happen. General Electric and the Veterans Administration helped to fund this. They did it through a services contract with us where we provided access and training to 2,000 veterans across the U.S. We can do the same thing right here in Pittsburgh.
Amen.
All right.
All right, thank you. Thank you.